Hey there, it's Matt Heaton with another Backer's Corner video, and today we are going to talk about modes. That's right, modes. So there's going to be a bit of theory here, but don't worry, don't be scared. It'll be pretty painless. So what I want to do, I want to explain kind of, what are we talking about with modes? What are they? What are the different ones? How do you tell which one you're in? And most importantly, how does that affect what you are doing, what chords you're playing, and what you're playing, what you're choosing, how you're choosing to accompany a tune? Because it's very easy to get kind of buried under all the possible knowledge about this stuff and lose track of the practical application. Okay, so, but first we are going to start with what the modes are. Oh, and also if I go on for too long, I might have to split this into two videos. We'll see. So I'm in drop D tuning. It doesn't matter what you're in. As long as you have a D string, because we are going to be making extensive use of a D string. So get yourself a D string, and here we go. So a mode, you can think of the word mode as just meaning scale. A scale is a bunch of notes that gets you from one occurrence of that note, a D, to an octave up, another D, okay? So we all probably know like the major scale, right? That's a mode, that's a mode. And so every, chromatic scale would be a mode, just as long as it gets you from here to here. It's a pattern of notes, right? So everything is a mode. That's thing number one. Now we are going to talk about what we commonly think of when we talk about modes. And for that, we need a major scale. So here is all you need to know about modes. Ready? Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Okay, you might recognize that pattern as a major scale. So a whole step on a fretted instrument is 2 frets, like here to here is a whole step, here to here, 1 fret is a half step. Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to play a major scale, use one finger going up this string, up the D string. Okay, and just for the sake of practicing your right hand a little bit, I'm going to give it a little four articulations for each one. So we start here on the D, then we go whole step, then a whole step, a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now we're going to go back down, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, and we're back where we started. That is a major scale, okay? And that is also called the Ionian mode, but you don't need to know that. So you can kind of, if I do that same thing and just drone it against another D, hear how that sounds, and it sounds pretty nice. And that's, to a lot of tunes, that would be D major, right? Very nice major mode. Now, if we take these notes, the D major scale notes, and instead of starting on the D, we start on a different note, but play the same notes. So we've kind of, made this pattern of notes, but instead of starting on the D, we're going to start on the E, the second note here. And we're going to play the same notes. So it's going to go like this. It'll, imagine you've sort of already done your whole step. So it's like, here we go. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step. Okay, so we just played a scale that uses the same notes as D major, but it's not D major. It's E Dorian. That's the Dorian mode. Listen, now I'm got a low E now, so I'm going to play those same notes against an E. Right? Sounds very different. If I noodle around on those notes against a D, versus against an E, you can hear how it sort of centers you on a different note. That's what's going on with the modes. What it has to do with is it has to do with what note you're hearing as the one. What note are you hearing as the most important note? Okay. Now, I'm going to blaze through these a little bit, highlighting the important ones. So there are, you're thinking to yourself like, well, okay, there are, 7 notes in the scale. There must be 7 different modes. Yes, there are. So the first mode is just major scale. Start on the D. Second one, E Dorian. That's going to be very useful. Keep that one in mind. Third one would be starting on the 3rd fret. Not useful. That's the Phrygian mode. It's the Phrygian is kind of like I always described as like the flamenco mode. Right? Don't really use that in Irish music. The fourth one is the Lydian mode, which not so useful in Irish music. It's very similar to the major scale, but it's got that one. And then, now I'm going to start running out of frets here, but I'll do my best. Then the Mixolydian mode is very useful in Irish music. Okay, and now I'm totally out of frets, so I'm going to switch over here. I'll do the Mixolydian again on the A string, because the Mixolydian mode is a D scale starting on an A string. Right? Then you got your Aeolian mode, which is starting on the B. And then your, what do you call it mode? Your Locrian, which is useless. Nobody uses that for anything. That's not entirely true. But the ones you need to know for Irish music, there are 2 major key modes and 2 minor key modes. The major key modes are the major scale and the Mixolydian mode. And the 2 minor key ones are the Dorian mode and the Aeolian mode. Okay, so that's not so bad, right? Now, what do I mean by the major ones and the minor ones? It all has to do with the 3rd note of the scale. So what I just showed you is how the modes are generated. But that's not necessarily the easiest way to think of them. Let's go back to our major scale and ready, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. If instead of doing that, if we number the notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. That's also how you're going to generate chords, but we're not going to talk about that right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. You can make a formula for each mode that, using that major scale as your default, like you assume it's going to be that. And if it's not that, something is going to change. For example, the Mixolydian mode has a flat 7. It's the only difference. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. It sounds like a major scale until you get to there. Right? And so that's all, that is the mode that when people say, oh, it's D modal, that's what they mean. They mean it's in the Mixolydian mode. And that's, all the great pipe tunes, that sound. that kind of does a little change, doesn't it? But anyway, so a Mixolydian mode has a flat 7. Major key, it's a major mode because down here the third is major. Right? You know about like the major third, happy, minor third, sad. If not, trust me. The major third would be that sound. A minor third would be a flat third. So the flat third gives you a minor 1 chord. That means the tune is in a minor mode. That's really important. You have 2 choices. You have a Dorian mode or an Aeolian mode. The difference is pretty minor. Minor, see what I did? The difference is pretty slight. The Dorian mode has a flat 3, 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. Okay? So it's got flat 3 and flat 7. That what I just played is E Dorian. The Aeolian mode, which is also known as the natural minor, and sometimes people will say if it's in minor, that's what they're talking about. But really, you know, there's multiple ways to be in minor because all minor means is that you got a flat 3. But the Aeolian mode has a flat 3 and flat 7, same as Dorian. They both have flat 3 and flat 7. Natural minor or Aeolian also adds a flat 6. So the difference is this. Here is Dorian again. Oops, sorry. And here's the Aeolian. Verses. Okay. Is that a huge difference? It is not a huge difference. You know, the important stuff, the flat 7 and the flat 3 are common to both of those. It's just that flat 6. And, you know, there are many, many tunes that don't even have that note in it. Okay, so what does this mean for us briefly chordally? Briefly chordally, if you are in a major key, you are playing, you know, like your 1 chord, your 4 chord, your 5 chord, minor 6, that sort of thing. All the, you know, the regular chords. If you are in a Mixolydian mode, that means you have a major 1, and then you've got that flat 7 up at the top, which means you can't play a 5 chord because that note, that A major, that's going to clash with the C natural. You're going to end up with a lot of that, which we don't really want. So what I usually tell people to do is you got your major 1 chord and you got your 7. So like a major chord and then a major chord 1 step below it. So in the case of, you know, if you're going to play the 5, it's got to be a minor 5. We can talk more about this. Is going to be brief. We can talk more about that stuff in a minute, but or maybe a later video. But so major key 1 4 5. Mixolydian 1 flat 7. Now, obviously, when I say this, I don't mean that you are literally not allowed to play any other chord at any point in the tune, because that might get a little dull. But as for your guidance, that's what you're going for. And further, I'll mention the Mixolydian. I find that it can be nice. Many of those tunes, to me, have sort of a drony, pipey feel, and I feel like they work well if you can just sort of hint at the C chord, like I'm just adding a C below it, that sort of thing, so you keep a lot of D in it. moving on. Minor modes. If so, you got a minor 1 chord, right? You got to have your your E minor, and then you have the flat 7 chord again. So the Dorian has flat 3 and flat 7 is the scale recipe. So and the chordally, so you've got your 1 chord. You got your flat 7 chord, a major chord below it. So you have a minor 1 chord, a major 7 chord below it. Oops, sorry, did it backwards. And then this is the sticking point. You actually you have the 6 is major, which means that you do not have a C chord. You'll hear a lot of people sort of, whenever it's minor, go, E minor, D, C, no matter what else is going on. And, technically, if the tune has that note in it, you don't want to be playing that chord against that note, do you? That doesn't sound so nice. So as an alternative, which I really like, I will often do like a minor 1, then a major 4, and then the 7. So this chord, so I'll go E minor, A, D. The A is the 5 of D, so it works nicely. And you can use a minor 5 too. And then the Aeolian mode, which I find is rarer. I think, my usual assumption, if it's an E minor tune, I think it's probably Dorian. If it's an A minor tune, it's probably Dorian. Not necessarily, though. And then, like, the other ones are a little... B minor is usually Aeolian. A minor is probably half and half. But anyway, that means that the C chord, or the 6 chord, you have a flat 7 and a flat 6, so you do have that flatted 6 chords. So the chords, if we're A minor, would be A minor, G, F, right? The Stairway to Heaven progression. Even if you're allowed to play it, don't overuse it. I always tell with minor tunes, the main 2 chords you're playing are the minor 1 and the flat 7 below it, and everything else is kind of spice. Gravy, So, reviewing 4 modes. 2 major, which are the major, and then Mixolydian, which people will call mix, or they will say modal, which as we have discussed, is not strictly correct, but just as long as you know what they mean. And then the 2 minor modes. There's Dorian and there's Aeolian. I don't see, there's no real benefit to saying, "Hey, Dorian," or whatever, like if you're shouting out a key to someone. Just listen and see if there is a significant sharp 6 in the tune, and make a, kind of tread lightly on that chord, like whether you're, don't, if you're in E minor, don't immediately start with a C chord. Kind of suss it out and try and figure out if it's going to work. Okay, now real quick, how the heck do you know what mode to use? Okay, so if you're sitting in a session, someone plays a tune you don't know, what do? Step 1, listen to it, right? Listen to it, first of all, for is it major or minor? That's usually the easiest thing to hear. So if you're, if someone starts playing a tune and, there's, I don't know, that sounds pretty happy. I'm going to say it's major. And or if they, that sounds minor. So just listen, and is it major or minor? If you can't tell, then listen some more, because if you get that wrong, it's gonna be trouble, friends. Then, okay, it's a major one. Well, the most common major keys are D, G, and A. So what I tell people is I've stolen this term from another friend who stole it from someone else. The dronality of the tune. In other words, what note can you play through the entire tune that will not sound terrible a lot of the time? So if you're kind of listening to a tune, you like play a note underneath it. That doesn't really sound right. How about this one? How about an A? Not really. What about the D? Oh, that's it. So you figured out that the dronality, the key, is D, some kind of D, and you also figured out that the mode is a minor one, let's say. So then you put them two and two together, and you're like, well, it's in D minor, so it's either Dorian or Dorian or Aeolian, and I'm just going to kind of play those two chords and see if I can hear a 6 in it. Great. Or, what if it's you get another tune that's a major key, You're like listening to that, and you think, and you try no, it's not really good. No, how about the D? Okay, good. And then, so that sounds, and is it major? Yeah, it is, because it starts on that note. That sounds nice. And then, anything else tricky in there? Well, there's a C natural in there. So it could be said to be Mixolydian, but does it stay there? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to listen further, because some of them, it's not always cut and dry. But the way to listen for them, listen for the character of it. Is it major or minor? If you can further refine that, can you hear, is it Mixolydian? Does it have a flat 7? That characteristic, kind of like kind of a yearning note in it, or is it just like straight up major and happy? If it's minor, can you hear the 6? Is there a 6? Sometimes the tune might not even play it. So you get the character of the tune, major or minor. Try and figure out what mode it's in. Then figure out what key it's in. What is the note? What note will you actually be playing? And you do that by just listening. Just quietly play one note. If it's if you can hear that's major, try D, try G, try A. If it's minor, try E minor, try A minor, try B minor. If it's a G and D minor sometimes happen, less often in my world, but certainly we don't rule them out. And so then once you figure that out, you put that together, and then you can play it. If you're looking at a piece of music, someone had asked about that. If you've got a thing and it's got the key signature, all bets are a little bit off, because people will write them differently. Some people will, if you want the tune to be in, let's say D Mixolydian, okay, which is the same key signature as G major, right? So it only has one sharp. Some people will write it, if you're good at reading music and you see a piece of music with one sharp in it, you're going to think, oh, this is in G, and you wouldn't be wrong for thinking that. But if you want it to be in D, you possibly would. One way people do it is they'll write it in D, 2 sharps, and then add a C natural every time that every time there's a C, which is clunky. But then the other way is to write it with 1 sharp, and it's not as clear that it's going to be in D. The real answer is, don't use the music, just listen to it. But if you are looking at it and you need to figure it out, just try to see, often the first or last note in the tune might be the root. Can't guarantee it, but it might. And you just kind of have to, if you're only doing it visually, you just sort of have to, if you're good enough to look through and sort of analyze the chords a little bit visually, that hopefully will give you a hint. But really and truly, the answer is to play through it. It's very hard. It's very hard, I think, given a piece of sheet music, if it's not just straight up in whatever key it appears to be in. Or what's very nice is sometimes people will write it however they want and then say D Mixolydian, so that what they're shooting for. But the real answer is to try and develop your ear. So I hope this is helpful. That is kind of my 25-minute introduction to to mode theory. If you have any questions, let me know. In the meantime, just start off one finger playing a major scale up and down. Also gets you kind of used to playing up here, which is nice. And then, if you've got any kind of, if you can put a drone next to it somehow, like, plenty of good drone apps for your phone now. Dorian, right? And just kind of see if you can train your ear to hear the ones you need. If the Phrygian mode is a bonus, but you don't need that. So anyway, thank you guys. I hope this is helpful. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. And thank you to Shannon for letting me borrow her YouTube page.